Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Play R-Type. Today we're going to be covering the second loop of the Master System version of the game. In the first two R-Type games, there tends to be only 2 loops in the game, whereas in future R-Type games, whenever you beat the game, the difficulty level tends to just increase, in the sense that you will go to the next difficulty level, which is available in the options menu of that game, which you can change. You might also notice that I no longer have a force module. This is due to the fact that I used the force module to defeat the final boss, and thus the force module, in the process of defeating the boss, was destroyed. The force module will also be destroyed if I defeat the boss via timeout, because in the sequence of the game, the force module is to be destroyed as it was used to defeat the Bido Empire leader guy. The death of the force module is made more dramatic in later R-Type games. For example, in R-Type Delta, when the force module is being destroyed, a yellow orb would go into it and the force module itself would shatter before the escape sequence. That probably marks the point where R-Type becomes a lot more dramatic and kind of scary and kind of depressing also. The main aspect of the difficulty changes. Unlike Gradius, the game does not have suicide bullets. Instead, it would just have a difficulty increase with the extent of the bullets that the enemies shoot at you, along with the speed of them increasing. The bosses also have certain aspects added to them to make them somewhat more difficult, although some bosses just remain the same and some are still easy, although some bosses have a health decrease, which I will discuss in later levels. The main aspect of the difficulty changes with regards enemies shooting more bullets at you can be seen at its most here, whereas these red robot guys, when they shoot the normal missile shot, you might notice that the speed has increased astronomically with their shots, meaning that if you don't have your force module in front of you, you're basically dead, because their bullets are very fast, unless R9 has a super duper fast normal shot, which I highly doubt. Now we're going to be fighting Doctoraptus, who is made somewhat more difficult as he has one more attack, which is that of the red bullets that he shoots at you. The red bullet is relatively easy to dodge, although if your luck is bad, it might just hit you when you're trying the strategy that I am using to defeat Doctoraptus here. Although if you try the other strategy, where you just throw the force module at the core, you can just wait at the top of the screen and dodge the bullet from time to time and let the force module do the work. Stage 9 is still somewhat easy, and it should be noted that the stages in Loop 2 are titled stages 9 to 16 rather than being titled stages 1 to 8 and just being Loop 2. There are no difficulty changes which are easy to see during the starting point of Stage 2, in the sense that there are no enemies that are really present except for these enemies that are hiding into the terrain, and seeing as they stop dead when you're being shot, that means they're not very hard to kill, and that means that the difficulty change for regards them is very hard to see. The difficulty change comes about more later, in the sense that it comes in a very annoying difficulty change, which is with these green guys, as the speed and extent in which they come, or the numbers, is very high, and they are very fast, meaning that they are likely to sneak up on you a lot more easily, meaning that you have to pay a lot more attention to them, because they are so numerous, because you never know when one might sneak up behind you. Remember, one only got me very easily when I was in Loop 1, because I was focusing too much on the Metroids, who seem to be kind of invincible in this one, but seeing as this is a sprite-based game, they're just going to disappear. You might also notice that my R9 ship is very fast now, because I've been collecting a lot of speed-ups, and the speed can be most noticeable, seeing as I am kind of outrunning the bit modules that are around me. It is kind of unfortunate that the bit modules are kind of useless at the moment, except for being bodyguards, although they're most noticeably useful when I am fighting the next upcoming boss. You might notice the Outslay Worm. There might be some kind of difficulty change with this guy, in the sense that the little red blood orbs that he shoots at us might increase in extent and speed, in the sense that he shoots more of them at us, although it's not very noticeable in the Master System version of the game, but it might be noticeable in the arcade version, as the arcade version appears to run a lot better, and graphically it's better too, in the sense that the transparency color of the terrain does not show, unlike in this game. Commander, otherwise, is still the easy boss that he was, although there is one strange aspect about him which makes him a lot easier, and seeing as we have the bit modules now, this strategy can be performed without any risk at all. Now, I would not recommend you get too close to Commander, as if his core opens and it makes contact with R9's hitbox, you will die and you will have to start back at the next checkpoint, which is a bit of a pain if you're really powerful. And by really powerful, I mean your force modules at the 3rd level. And as you can see, the Commander boss died very quickly, in the sense that the Outslay Worm never actually reached one of the tubes, whereas if you're fighting him, Commander in Loop 1, the Outslay Worm will at least reach one of the tubes in Commander before actually dying. And let's dig our heads in the dirt, because we are now in Stage 3. This is where you would mostly see the difficulty changes, as the little defenses, or at least some of the defenses that are around the large ship, have a lot more health, and some of their attacks come at a much higher speed. And this is a bit annoying with regards to fighting this guy through using the charge shot, because you have to time it pretty well, because you have to avoid the balls that he shoots at you, because your force module does not absorb the balls. Otherwise, once you take care of them, you're free to vandalize the ship. The bullet speeds of the enemies are also increased, although you don't really need to worry about them, because they're just turrets that are just mounted on the wall, and some of them just point in the one direction and don't home in on you. Although some of the turrets do, they're still relatively easy to dodge. You might notice that there is the good old laser gunner guy there. I would not recommend teasing him, although he's easy to dodge in Loop 1, because the lasers that he shoots at you are relatively slow. However, when you're fighting him in Loop 2, to jeer him is like jeering a bear in real life. You're basically dead if he attacks you, because the laser speed is really fast, and thus, if you are not expecting the laser speed to be very fast, the laser could come at you and kill you. And that is a bit of a pain when playing this stage in particular, because this stage has no checkpoints. You will not respawn at a certain section of the ship. You will have to start the stage all over again. That's not exactly too bad, because you still get the nice little yellow powers, which are still pretty good for vandalizing the ship, although you do lose your bit modules, meaning that you are not quite as powerful as you were before you actually started this stage. The boss here, there are no actual differences except for the fact that he shoots more blue balls, but that's not really important. In fact, the only important thing is that we should probably collect that power up so we can get more points, but I'm not very intelligent. But regardless, the boss is still easy, and he takes only one charge shot to kill. And now we will go to stage 12, where the horror truly begins. The reason the horror truly begins in this level is because you might get killed by something you don't really know what killed you. The reason being is, the spider enemies that would spawn the little balls in the stage now shoot bullets at you. Now this is a huge pain, in the sense that this stage is already tightly packed as a result of the spiders spreading the webs throughout the stage, making the stage much tighter, and that kind of negates the usefulness of trying to trap the enemies, because you're always under threat, 100% of the time. Whereas if you were playing in Loop 1, he could just trap some of the enemies and get through the stage comfortably. Well, there's no more comfort zones here, my friends, because now we have to contend with the bullets being shot by the spiders. And that's a bit of a pain, because the spider shots are a bit unpredictable, and thus you need to be keeping your eye on everything, which can make the stage awfully difficult, and the death rates of the stage are relatively high. This would be the point where I'd normally be getting killed a lot, especially by the spider enemies. And you should note that the bullet speeds in this stage are very high, and sometimes this stage can get a bit panic-inducing, and one could end up killing themselves by accidentally crashing into the walls through panic rather than through getting shot by bullets. However, this part of the stage is still relatively easy. You might notice that some of the enemies are actually very fast too, like these red enemies. They were not this fast before, I don't think. Of course, the boss here, it is actually an embarrassment, not because we are playing in Loop 2. The boss does not change with regards to Loop 2, except for the bullet speeds and the laser speeds. However, we're not going to get to see that, because it should be noted that he will only ever attack you if you get in the line of sight of his shots. And of course, thankfully, I never actually got in the line of sight of his turrets or the lasers that are mounted on him, meaning that he never attacked me. He was actually very passive this time around. So, he was actually very easy, which is very embarrassing. That's even more embarrassing than the Stage 5 boss. So this is the end of this installment of R-Type, folks. See you in the next episode.